Hockey Town, it's a place where dreams are found. We fought so many battles here, now we're the ones that they will fear. The cup resides within our town, we won't stop no letting down. The cup is ours, we're all to drink. It's our time, let's rock this ring.
Yo, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hockey Town Rundown. You're here with us, your beautiful hosts, once again, Zack and Carlo. And we got a lot to cover today, buddy, because we have some special guests here coming on the show, but you'll see them here in a second. Carlo, how's your weekend so far, buddy?
Hey, man, it's good. It's all good. It's always good. Busy, but, just doing the thing.
Crowd strikes got you down, right?
No, I dodged the bullet there, work-wise, but there are some of my family members are feeling the burn on that. Delayed flights, canceled flights, yada yada yada. Sucks. How about you? Did you get crowd striked or what?
Fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, I was not affected. Still had to work. Just did a lot of cleaning again. I'm a very neat and organized guy. If you guys haven't been able to figure that out quite yet. I say the same thing pretty much every single week at this
Reach your habit, man. That's all right.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and jump into it, Carlo. And before we do, we want to stop and say thank you for joining us on this episode today. If you are returning, also if you're new, thank you for stopping by. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you enjoyed this episode so far, but continue watching, I think you will enjoy the rest of what you watch and listen. Hit the thumbs up as well. If you're on Spotify, rate us 5 stars. I almost said hit the thumbs up as well. Follow us on there. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, follow us as well. I believe that's all you have to do, Carlos. So yeah, we're finally on there if you haven't noticed that. And we are doing a giveaway. We are giving away 3 Hockey Town Rundown hats. I am sporting the trucker cap. We do have a flat brim one. This one does come in flat when you first get it, but I just bent it. Just do that. They're all snapbacks too. So we got them in black and we got them in gray. We also got long tees. We also got short tees. We got tank tops, hoodies, sweatshirts, all that cool stuff. So go ahead and check out that store and then enter the giveaway. It is a Twitter giveaway. Go ahead and retweet that. Tag a friend. That really does help us out as well.
Big time.
Yeah. 3 lucky winners will be receiving these, by the way. So go ahead and enter, please. We want to give you stuff away for free. So, Carlo, what do we got today? We got some Red Wings news. We got some main topics. We got some guest appearances today. Well, as you can see down below, we'll be talking about who gets the A. A little bit of the Wings depth chart and more. But Carla, let's go ahead and jump into some Red Wings news. Joe Veleno signs a 2-year by $2.275 million deal. A or an A, buddy?
I mean, I think I said online, like, I don't hate it. I don't love it. I think that's just more speaking to Joe Veleno, the player, as it is to Joe Veleno's contract and paycheck. I mean, let's face it, the cap's going to go up tremendously over the course of the next 3 to 4 years to the point where no one will be talking about Joe Veleno's 2.275. So, yay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much you can really say about it. I mean, I said it in the short episode that I made when it first happened. I kind of thought it would be 1 by 1.5. Going into arbitration, maybe Steve Yzerplan thought that he was eligible to get more. Maybe he was. I mean, I said it later in this recording earlier today. It's 2:45 right now PM. This is fine. It is what it is. Who knows? Like you said, in 4 to 5 years from now, this could be the league minimum for all league.
Yeah, dude, for real. Like that's the whole thing to look at. And I will say though, like to give credit where credit is due, Joe Veleno has gotten, better. He's a
dog.
Like
he's a dog.
It's not crazy growth or anything like that, but he is getting better little by little as each year goes on.
Yeah.
I'll give it a yay. And I will say that it makes Tarasenko's deal look that much better. I think.
So, okay, that's the next question that really wasn't on the bingo card today. So is Tarasenko overpaid or underpaid? Because there's discourse on Twitter right now saying that he's overpaid. 4.75 for Tarasenko, someone who could put up 25 goals, not points in total. I mean, like I think that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think that's, again, like, understand. This is the thing, man. Like Tarasenko gets signed for that contract, and it's like, are people oh, that's not bad. That's going to age really, really well because, the cap's going up. But then Joe Veleno gets signed and everyone's like, oh, that's terrible. It's like, well, where did the logic go that you just had for Tarasenko? No, I think 4.75 is fine for Tarasenko. Let me ask you this. Who would you rather give 4.75 to, Vladimir Tarasenko or David Perron?
Yeah, definitely Tarasenko. I mean, not only because, Tarasenko we know that Tarasenko is going to score more. David Perron, David Perron is more on the decline than Tarasenko is. And we've seen players over the age of 30, under the age of 35, out of nowhere just have these weird years where they're damn near a point per game player.
I just think when it comes to contracts,
bad examples out there, bro.
100%. Listen, if you want to nitpick contracts, nitpick the ones that are in the double digits per year. And really determine, okay, is it worth giving this person double digits? That's where I think we're at, especially in the next 3-4 years, 3 to 5 years, with cap going up the way it's projected to go up and projected to go up. I don't think we're going to even be talking about $4.75 million contracts anymore. So
hopefully that's the league minimum by then. Who knows? But I think, and it's funny, I'm bringing up these guys, and I just watched them recently, Locked On. They talked about, some fans were talking about how the Red Wings were in cap hell. Maybe that's part of it too, and I don't think that that's the case. The Red Wings aren't in cap hell, just because they might not have over $5 million left by the time that they sign the 3 remaining players that they have. By no means does that mean that they're in cap hell. We're talking about it later in this episode too, where by next season, they're going to have damn near $30 million to utilize in the free agent market next season. So,
without Raymond or Seider to sign.
Exactly. But Carlo, let's move on. Sprong, just Red Wing. I just threw this in here as Red Wings news. He didn't sign with the Red Wings. He signed with the Canucks, but a former Red Wings player for 1 year, $975,000. Carlo, I think him and his agent shot themselves in the foot here. I think they wanted term, they wanted money, waited too long. This is what they get. It's almost kind of like Matt Dumba from last year.
Yeah. I mean, possibly, dude. I also think that it's a prove-it deal on a really good team, on a really exciting team right now. I think Vancouver may have reached out and said, "Listen, like let's do this, and here's the carrot. It's there, but you got to go and get it." And I think it could very well be a deal like that. I think Canuck fans are going to love Daniel Sprong and what he can bring. I do think his offensive talents, I think, are underrated. I will say that. Keyword offensive talents. He does need to be better defensively. But when you're getting a guy like him for that value, there's literally zero to complain about. Like zero.
Yeah, you're not losing out on this signing whatsoever, even if he only puts up like 20 points on that $975,000.
You can't complain.
You're not missing out there. Yeah, Vancouver fans, you got a pretty good player here, in our opinion. You're getting offensive upside. The defense is not really there, unfortunately, for you guys. But Carlo, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, but they haven't projected on the top line. No.
I did see that. I think, okay, give him a look for, do the experiment approach at training camp, put him on that top line. But I think it really depends on who his line mates are. He needs some very defensively sound line mates.
Yeah. 100%.
So, take that for whatever it's worth. I see him more of a middle six guy, realistically. I don't think he thinks that. And I think he does have more to give and maybe another gear that he could potentially unlock. But all of these things have remained to be seen. I'm saying these things based off of what I saw with his stints of offensive power. He does have a great shot. It's a bomb of a shot. If he could find line mates to complement that, who are also good defensively and give him those opportunities, maybe he does earn himself up to the top the top 2 lines. But right now, I would be shocked. I mean, I think he's got to earn that. He's got to showcase that. Right now, I would say comfortably he's a middle six guy, mainly on the 6.
Who knows? Maybe down the line they'll see what we saw, and he'll end up being on the 4th line or a healthy scratch event.
Hey, man, it remains to be seen. You never know.
It's all on Daniel Sprong. Yeah,
totally. But we wish him well. Spronger, big.
Oh yeah.
I loved watching Spronger when he was releasing bombs. I was a big Spronger fan throughout the season. It had its peaks and its valleys, like really anything. But we wish Spronger the best of luck, man. I think he'll have fun out there.
I threw this in the group chat the other day when the signing happened, and I'm going to say it on here. Pretty crazy that 6-7 months ago, however long it was, a lot of fans can easily say that we were some of them too. A lot of people were wanting to extend them to like 4 or anywhere from like 3 to 6 years. Looking back at that now, it's like bullet dodged.
Well, maybe, man. I mean,
tough to say.
It's really tough to get super high on a player after, for watching them play whatever 40 or 50% of a season. Because I mean, he did have a good first half of the season. I think that's when it was really exciting for him. But I think it also is a learning opportunity for everybody too. Yeah, exactly. Because you got to let things play out, and you really can't judge and be like making these types of decisions because they just come to look very irrational when the season ends. Let's give this guy a 4-year deal. It's like, buddy, he's played like 35 games. It's like, whoa. So it's a learning. It's just a learning experience to pulse those brakes a little bit. But yeah, it's funny. You're dead on because I remember seeing last season people. We got to extend Spronger. 2, 3, 4 years. I've seen that, and I mean, I was all for it for the 50% of the season, but I didn't make my final conclusion until the whole season wound up. And I'm like, maybe not. Maybe not. Because eventually a guy like Sprong will turn into that plug player, and he will basically be that block when you have very talented youth banging down the door.
That's a stacked team, to be honest with you. I think that's a pretty good team over there in Vancouver.
Yes. So. They are an exciting team. I'm a big Rick Tocchet fan too, and I think he's got those guys humming. I think they're playing for him just as much as he's coaching for them. And I think it's just a really good unit and a good group from top to bottom. So very exciting team. They're going to be fun to watch yet again.
Yeah. Shout out to EP9. I love you. I wish you were a Red Wing, but moving on, let's talk about Jesse Kiskinen, a newly signed Detroit Red Wing who comes over from Finland, who actually was captaining the U20 Finland team today for an international friendly. And I believe he did score a power play goal. He might have gotten more points, but I haven't checked Twitter since then. But this is someone that we talked about further along in this episode. So make sure you catch that part. But yeah, Carlo, this is a Steve Yzerman guy. Captains.
Yeah.
A little bit older too, kind of fits the mold of like what he's looking for. I asked the question later in this episode. So I kind of feel like that we might be able to see some NHL games in him at some point, but it would be down the stretch of the season. But so far, I like what I see out of him.
Yeah, no, another very promising player for sure. I think today I know he scored. I think it was a power play goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was reading too that I think he had 7 shots on net.
Wow.
As well.
Wow.
Penalty minutes too. He had some penalty minutes too, so he could do it all. But a guy that obviously plays with passion. I mean, that to me that really screams passion, and we'll take it. We'll absolutely take that. We can never have enough players that are similar to players like that with those characteristics. You got to have that. So if he cracks the team eventually, that'd be great. Competitive, keep everybody else competitive, elevate everybody else's game, especially with the characteristics that he brings. So another promising guy that a lot of fans should really keep an eye on for sure.
GRG is going to be absolutely filthy this year. I feel it in my bones, man. I mean, adding someone like Jack Campbell, already having Kosa, adding a Nate Danielson, when you already have a Marco Kasper with a Mazer and all these other names, it's chills.
Yeah, dude, I know.
It's great. It really is. But Carlo, let's go ahead and jump into our main topics. And from here, I'm speaking really weirdly. I don't know why. It's Sunday.
Been at it a while.
Let's go ahead and jump into our main topics, and we'll see y'all on the other side, featuring Devin Little and Tony Wolak from the Hockey Writers. Yo, what's going on, everyone? You're here with us once again, Carlo and Zach with some beautiful guests, Tony and Devin from the Hockey Writers. Carlo, claps to the boys.
Big claps to the boys
for joining us today. We really do appreciate
you guys being here. Absolutely.
If you guys don't know Devin and Tony, please, Tony and Devin, lay down the groundwork for our viewers and our listeners on who you are.
After you.
Thank you. Tony Wolak. I'm a senior writer for the Hockey Writers. Been with the Hockey Writers now for almost 8 years. So covering the Red Wings and happy to join the pod today. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
And I'm Devin. I'll say I'm the second senior writer. I've been around not quite as long as Tony, but been around for a while. Yeah. Write about Red Wings, talk about Red Wings. That's what I'm here to do, right? Excited to be here with you guys. Let's talk some Wings.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go into it. It's been a pretty interesting off season. You got a lot of happy fans. I think a lot more unhappy fans, but let's go ahead and talk about some of your more recent articles. Devin, you actually just threw us into a tizzy this morning with your most recent article. Carlo and I had the pleasure of reading that this morning. First thing we did, jumped out of bed, opened up the Devin article.
Yep.
Who's going to get the A next year? So, and then Tony, with you, you came out with the Red Wings depth chart, and I have some very interesting questions to ask you about that too. There's some pieces that I was like, okay, let's kind of go into this a little bit, but for starters, Devin, let's go ahead and talk about your article, and that addressed potential options for getting the A this upcoming season for the Detroit Red Wings. So kind of lay down the groundwork for those who may have read it or have not had a chance to read it yet, and give us a little inside look at that.
Yeah, so since the 2022 off season, when the Red Wings brought in Ben Sherratt, Andrew Kopp, and David Perron, those three guys were the alternate captains with Dylan Larkin. Obviously, you only have two during a game, but the A's kind of rotated between those three. And as we know by now, David Perron's not a Red Wing anymore. He moved on to Ottawa. And in theory, that means that there's now an opening for somebody to take on an A. Now, obviously, I'll preface this by saying that there's a very real possibility that they just roll with Sherratt and Kopp kind of on a permanent basis, unless there's an injury or whatever. But I also think that there are a number of players that are deserving of consideration to take on that letter from Perron. And it goes from, veterans to some young guys that really stepped up last year. I don't know if we want to get too deep into it, but I guess the main crux of the article is that, it's not like there's one guy you point to and go, that's the guy. There's a handful that you can make an argument for. And that's what I tried to do with the article.
Yeah, I would say you did a very good job at doing that, right? You made some really good points for each player that you listed on there. And yeah, we won't go too deep into it. We'll let the viewers and the listeners take the moment to appreciate your well-written article. Same as Tony's as well. We won't go too deep into that. But yeah, some of the names that were in there, or at least talking about some names that I would like to toss out, Kane, instant one of them, right? Same as Moritz Seider. I think those are probably the top two that most fans of the Detroit Red Wings are looking to see get that A. Between you two, though, Devin and Tony, if you had to pick between one of those two, I guess we'll just kind of play this game real quick. Who stands over the top over the other, or is that really how you want to look at it? How, in that room, what are some key characteristics that they're actually looking for that you can say this player would be a good leader versus this player?
I think for me, the two main characteristics that really stand out are obviously just respect, not just amongst their teammates, but also among the league. Really, I think especially at this point in his career, Dylan Larkin is very respected in the Red Wings locker room, but he's also really starting to become respected league wide as the Red Wings captain and as a top center in the league. And I think that's one of those things that you look for in a leader, is someone who kind of just leads the way and sets an example and earns that respect from not just their peers, but the people that they play against on a regular basis. And then the other thing too is, I kind of just said it too, you want somebody who sets an example. Over the next few years, we're going to see a lot of youth coming into the roster. And you want to have guys that those kids can look to, not just for pointers and how to get better, but also just that they can lean on and come to if things aren't going right for them, just to, just someone to soundboard some things off of. I find that the best captains aren't necessarily the guys who, flip tables when they're going through a losing streak. They're the ones who just listen to their teammates and know what to say to kind of get the best out of them. Kind of like a good coach, right? They're kind of that middle spot between the coaching staff and the team. So again, that's one of those things that I when I listed the candidates I wrote about, they had to kind of check those boxes for me. And again, I think they have a lot of players that do check those boxes.
Yeah, you brought up David Perron. I thought towards the end of the season when Dylan Larkin was out, and even towards the end stretch, David Perron was kind of facilitating that role where he's almost kind of like the coach physically being on the ice, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it kind of felt, I thought for a second you were making a Jacob Trouba reference with flipping tables over in captaincy. So pardon me for thinking that, but no, you made some really good points. But Tony, I want to ask you the same thing. Is there any key characteristics that you're looking in for these two players, or is there any differences that you see?
I think Devin hit the nail on the head here. It's most of all respect in the locker room and around the team. And also someone who has they've gone through the process, right? Dylan Larkin has been there since rock bottom.
Yep.
And, there's something to say about that. The one player that Devin mentioned that we haven't quite mentioned a lot in this episode just yet, who I think is going to end up with the A, is Michael Rasmussen. Devin laid it out exactly in his article. I encourage you to read that. But he tended to get the A whenever, like during the preseason and some games when one of the other players was out. If you watch anything with the pregame, he's one of the last Red Wings to hit the ice, giving players taps on the way out. He's been there. He's grown a lot since he joined the organization. He's certainly well respected on the team. Whenever you see like the Larkin and the guys out, on road trips or going anywhere, Rasmussen's always there. He is well respected on the team. And if we're going to pick someone who deserves the A, I think it's him. And for the other players that Devin mentioned, like they have a case to be made as well. I guess my standpoint is just Rasmussen's the guy.
It's a very interesting take because I'm almost there to be with you guys on that one, Tony. Like I think I'm on the track you're on, because for me, we've all watched Raz really develop into a physical defensive forward, and he's kind of earned his keep. And in my opinion, and maybe we share this opinion too, that he's kind of that perfect gap in between the super, those veteran players and those young players that are currently on the team. Because guys, let's face it, Moritz Seider, he's going to get his A. Lucas Raymond, he's going to get his A. But right now, I think that the biggest argument would be between Patty Kane, who really fills that A in nicely that Perron used to wear. But I think Michael Rasmussen is the perfect, I guess, balance between, like I said, that veteran and youth. And just his development path, like I said, he's kind of earned that keep. And
great story from him, honestly. The way that he came up, right? And Tony, you said, sorry to cut you off there, Carlo, but I just wanted to throw this out there. Yeah, you talked about being in that dweller, right? Being from the bottom and going all the way up. He was on the team back in 2018-19 season, right? And then having to go back to GRG to work on some things. So his story, his career to being to the position where he's at, yeah, I would agree with you guys. I think he's a good prime candidate to get that A. Go ahead, Carlo. Sorry.
I just wanted to ask one question based off of all this great discussion so far is and this is for both of you guys, but how do you guys think his personal growth and his experience with overcoming these obstacles that we've talked about can inspire and influence the team, especially newer and younger players that are kind of banging on the door?
Great question.
So from my standpoint, that's even one of the arguments I made on his behalf is, obviously people had mixed feelings about Rasmussen. I mean, even as soon as like 2 years ago. He's the 9th pick in the 2017 draft, and that obviously comes with hefty expectations. And as much as we love Rasmussen, I think we can all admit he doesn't look like a 9th overall caliber player nowadays. See, that's not what he developed into.
Sure.
But even 2 years ago when people were still not on his side, the thing I would say about him is sometimes you have to make lemonade out of lemons. You can't, you might want him to be this thing, but if he's not going to be that thing, all right, then what else can we make him?
Yeah.
And I think the fact that, he's a useful NHL player now, he realized he's not going to be this big time point producing power forward. So instead he focuses on being a reliable defensive utility player because he can play both down the middle and on the wing. He really kind of carved out a role for himself because he had to.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially for players coming up that are going to have a lot of expectations on them, and maybe they aren't going to hit them right away. Maybe they aren't going to meet or reach their potential right away. They can look to a player like Rasmussen and know that, maybe they're not going to be what everyone thought they were going to be, but if they work hard enough, they can still be a very useful player and earn their keep as a Red Wing.
Totally.
And just to add to that, earlier in the season, Derek Lalonde, he praised Rasmussen for his versatility. And if you think about that, the flip side of versatility is the willingness to do so many different things. So, started him out at center, he can play center. Move him to the wing, perfectly fine there too. Tried in an offensive role before, may see him there again for all we know. But then moved him to a checking line with Andrew Kopp and Christian Fischer, and did the same the year before with Oscar Sundqvist and Elmer Soderblom for a little bit. Pretty much, Rasmussen does what he's asked, and he gives 110% for whatever that is. And for new players coming up, young players coming up through the system and making the Red Wings, that's exactly what you want to be like highlighting and praising and showing them that it's all part of Steve Yzerman's strategy. It's to surround the young players with well-respected veterans who are great leaders. And what better leader to have than someone who is, does what's asked 110%, 110% effort every time.
I also want to add to 2 years ago, I remember this because I was at the game. That crazy game against the Tampa Bay Lightning in late February, where Vasilevsky just shut everything down, and they were still in that playoff push. And this was it was right before that duo series against Ottawa. Michael Rasmussen goes down with an injury, and he does not return the rest of the season. And after that game, that was the beginning of the Red Wings' downfall that season.
Yep.
That's when they fell out of it. I do think losing Ras was a big part of that.
Ras turned it on too, I think in January of that year, if I'm not mistaken. I think he really started turning it on for the team. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then, right as as you put it, he's really coming on, starting to be an impact player, then you lose him. And you're not just losing what he does on the ice, you're also losing his presence just in the locker room. And also he's a big dude, right? It just makes you a little bit easier to play against. So, I don't think it was a coincidence that they lost him and immediately their season started to go down the drain.
Yeah, there's some connections there for sure. And boy, are we building a strong case for Michael Rasmussen.
Yeah, for sure.
So, hey, Michael, if you're watching, drop us a like or something, brother. We'd appreciate it.
Oh,
that is awesome.
Yeah. Another thing just to throw out there, he's got those crazy eyes. He will do anything to protect his teammates too.
Facts.
He will go in there and he will rough up some people
Facts.
on the other team for sure. Yeah. So, and I think this is a good segue to kind of go into Tony's depth chart article that he did a while back. I believe that was earlier this month. Tony, correct me if I'm wrong there, but yeah, this is a well-written article too. I mean, you broke down everything that the Red Wings did this offseason, talking about the Andrew Gibson trade, getting Jesse Kiskinen, who was wearing the C today for a friendly game. I can't remember who that was against, but he did score a power play goal, so good for him. I thought that was awesome. But Tony, there are some things on here that I want to ask you about. And, Carlo also has questions about the bottom six. I believe those are some of the questions you want to ask Carlo. But for me, some of the things that I see on this projected depth chart that you have, Tony, is that you have Lucas Raymond on the left side in the top six. And then you have Jonathan Berggren on the bottom six, actually on the fourth line. Can you kind of tell us your thought process on that and why you could see the Red Wings putting those players there in those positions?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll start at the top and work our way down.
Sure.
When it comes to, obviously, we have Dylan Larkin and JT Compher at center for the first two lines. Then you just got to think about which players will mesh well with like the wings, like which pairs will mesh well. So like, I mean, the case for Kane and DeBrincat is pretty straightforward given their history. I also saw there being like a natural like synergy between Lucas Raymond and Vladimir Tarasenko with complementary skill sets. You know, Tarasenko is a shoot first player, but you know he's as he's become more experienced, the playmaking side of his game and the puck control has gotten better. If you look at it from that perspective. So I just saw an opportunity to place those two together on the second line. It's nothing against Lucas Raymond moving him to the second line. I just think it's where he'll be most effective. And frankly, you could flip-flop the wings there. You could do Kane and DeBrincat with JT Compher and then Raymond and Tarasenko with Larkin. I just think in terms of who plays with Kane and who plays with Tarasenko, the two other forwards that I mentioned are the best bets. Kane and Tarasenko, I don't think that's going to turn out too well from a defensive standpoint, even though they may have the puck the whole time for all we know. We know that DeBrincat and Raymond are going to be effective for sure. But DeBrincat and Tarasenko, kind of the same sort of defensive question there. And plus you're going to have two trigger men on the same line. I'm sure the Red Wings will experiment with this a little bit during training camp and throughout the season, but at the very least, just having those groupings makes the most sense from my perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think Carlo and I would agree. I don't want to speak on your behalf, Carlo, but I think keeping Raymond on the second line is more than okay. I think he would be the play driver, or at least it seemed like he was last season. Adding Tarasenko is an added benefit for him, honestly. And then going back and looking at Jonathan Berggren, a lot of fans, they have different opinions on where to place him. He could probably fit in the middle six, but you have him listed on the fourth line. And you kind of said skill set, what's the best fit for this type of player. So is this a player that could put himself in a top six position by the end of the season?
I mean, just to answer that question, it's, I'd be curious who he would, step in for. Right. But, then again, if someone was injured, he would be the natural choice to jump up to a top six role. I think there's a misconception, though, about like the bottom six, if you will, because like the Red Wings have already said that they're going to run back a checking line next year with like Andrew Copp, assuming it's Andrew Copp, Michael Rasmussen, and Christian Fischer.
Yep.
Which would leave Berggren, Joe Veleno, Tyler Mott on the quote unquote fourth line, but it just all depends on how you look at it. Maybe Copp's line is the fourth line. They're the checking line. They're the matchup line, and that would mean Veleno, Berggren, and Mott would be your quote unquote third line. But it's a first line, second line, third line, fourth line. I don't think that's how we should be looking at it. It's you have two scoring lines, you have a matchup line, and then you have another line which you can use for strategic deployments, offensive zone starts, power play usage, penalty kill. It's not a fourth line in the traditional sense, but it's kind of the way the game's evolving, and you're not going to have, a three Luke Glendennings on the third line, or I'm sorry, fourth line.
That would be sweet, though. That would be nice.
I'll just add too. I think I'll just kind of add on to that. I do think that lineups just in general are a lot more fluid than people kind of think of them. People kind of think of them as very rigid. The team always posts the lineup 5 minutes before the game starts. And you always see, why is player X ahead of player Y? Why, whatever. It doesn't really matter where they stand on the lineup sheet. What really ultimately matters is how the coach uses the players. Because, you might have your checking line on your fourth line and you have your top line on the top. But if the coach decides it's going to be a checking game, that fourth line is going to end up being the second line because they kind of keep always ending up on the ice. So, just because player X is listed on the fourth line doesn't necessarily mean that they're only going to play 10 minutes a night. It's just kind of, you got to submit a lineup sheet and this is how it's got to look.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a good point. It is very, very fluid. It's kind of the point I was making too with that 1A, 1B kind of thing.
Yep.
For sure.
And then you got to remember the Red Wings like to run with 11 forward, 7 defensemen lineup. I think they did that like 10 or 15% of the games last year.
Yep.
So it's, in that case, it doesn't really matter what line you're on. The first two lines are probably going to be playing most of the game. You're going to have 1 or 2 players playing 8 minutes a night who are forwards, and then who plays with who is going to be constantly rotating throughout the game. So I agree with Devin. Like it's not a rigid thing. It's about how they're actually deployed in the game.
So, question for you guys on Jonathan Berggren. This is just a high level question, but regardless of if he's getting third line deployment or fourth line deployment, whatever you want to call it, if he's getting, let's say he's getting those third line minutes to play that line that Devin mentioned, kind of that strategic utility knife type of line. Let's call it the third line, just for this question. Do you see him getting over or under 45 points as that third line ice time guy? And do you see him getting over or under 30 points if he's getting that fourth line ice time usage?
It's a tough one.
It's hard. I don't know why I picked those two numbers. I guess that's what I'm hoping for. But I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are.
I would say I think you kind of ideally want to see Berggren hit 40 points because then you kind of really know you have something with him.
Yeah.
But I guess for me, it's not so much about playing 10, 12, 15 minutes a night. At the end of the day, right now, as per Tony's projection here, he's playing with Joe Veleno and Tyler Mott. Tyler Mott's not exactly an offensive player, and Joe Veleno's hasn't really proved himself to be a really potent offensive player either. Mm-hmm. So you got Berggren playing with two guys that aren't exactly known for putting the puck in the net. As good as Berggren is, he can't do it all himself.
Right.
So he might genuinely be limited by who he plays with more so than how much he actually plays. He might end up being a guy that needs to kind of make a living on the power play. And that's where he gets his production from because, if the bottom six looks the way we're thinking it looks right now, he's going to be like the one real offensive piece there.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if you can realistically say he's going to get 40 points. I don't know how he's going to get 40 points unless he's scoring 40 goals by himself.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the apples probably aren't going to be too much. Yeah. I gotcha. No, that's a good way to look at it too. I guess I didn't look at it that way. Even if you were to flip his centerman and you put him with Andrew Kopp, I think Kopp might give you a few more opportunities than Veleno, but I feel like Kopp's going to be more inclined to play that two-way back checking role to cover for Berggren. Let's face it.
I do think that the top six is pretty much set. It just kind of depends on who's playing with who and whatnot. But I do think at some point you got to get Berggren up there, just to kind of get an idea. I don't think that the situation is as urgent as some people think it is in terms of his future with the organization. But if he's going to have a future with the organization, it's not going to be as a checking winger. So at some point they have to put him in a position to produce. And if he does, great. If he doesn't, then we talk about the next step. But
yeah.
I hope Red Wings fans are eating a lot of Yanni burgers this season. I would love to see him score 40 goals, please.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah, one day.
That would be sick. But Tony, just kind of going into the defense on the depth chart as well. It is what it is. Looking at it, yeah, we could be seeing the Red Wings rocking 8 defensemen where you're rotating 2 almost every game, right? Let's talk about Moritz Seider's defensive partner. Is Ben Chiarot really the best option currently right now until we see looks of Simon Edvinsson more than what we've seen in the past?
I mean, who else are you going to play there? I think, look, I mean, him, Seider and Ben Chiarot, they were fine down the stretch. They had, they have very difficult minutes, and they did fine together. It's tough to play against opponents' top lines, especially when you're in a playoff hunt. So if you're looking at the depth chart, yeah, I mean, sure. Keep the top 4 from the end of the season rolling into the start of the 2024-25 season, and then let someone, whether it's Olli Maatta or Albert Johansson or Erik Gustafsson, play their way into a top 2 pairing. But otherwise, I don't see the need to make a change based on how the defense is currently constructed.
I would agree with that. I mean, that's a pretty mean top pairing too. Ben Chiarot's no stranger at getting in people's faces too and roughing them up along the boards. Just don't blow some assignments, please. We would love that. So, and who knows, maybe Moritz Seider can up his goal scoring too. I mean, he kind of did this past season to the previous season too. So, the world is his oyster, essentially, I believe. Well, hopefully the same case with Simon Edvinsson. One question for you, and we can move on from the defense, but over under Albert Johansson plays 40 games this season.
It's a great question. I'm going to...
It is tough.
I'll take the over on that one. I think my perspective is the Red Wings aren't going to, try to send him back to Grand Rapids and risk losing him on waivers. And they know with a younger player like Johansson, they got to get him into the lineup somehow. So he's not just sitting in the stands for most of the season. Like, it's harsh, but it doesn't have the same impact on Olli Maatta or Justin Hull to sit in the stands. It just doesn't. Like, you need Johansson to develop because he's going to be part of the defense, moving into the future. So, we'll probably see him sitting, at least half the games just to start. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was a regular towards the end of the season.
Yeah. What about you, Devin?
Well, I don't know if I'm the president of the Albert Johansson fan club, but I'm on the board somewhere. I have all the faith in the world in this kid. I am definitely taking the over on 40 games. I do agree. I think they'll slow play him at least to start the season. That's just kind of how they handle their prospects.
Yep.
But I think as soon as or if he proves that he can hold down a spot, they're not going to take him out unless he regresses like Soderblom did a few years ago, or he has an injury or whatever. I think Johansson is one thing about him is people maybe forget he's from the Seider draft. He was a 2nd round pick in 2019. So he's been in the system for a while now. Defensemen take longer to develop. So I'm not saying he's like a finished product right now, but he is at an age and at a point in his development where it's time to see. It's time to see what you have. And you're not going to see it by him sitting in the press box. So again, I have all the faith in the world that he will prove himself to be an NHL defenseman. How good of one remains to be seen. But at the very least, just from an asset management standpoint, they have to get him in and they have to figure out if he's going to be part of the future or not. And I if you're asking me, I think he will.
Carlo?
I want the over so bad. I'm a big Aljo guy. I'm very, very high on him. And, kind of reading through one of Tony's most recent articles, and it's kind of the defensive improvement strategies and things that they can do. I really think they're leaning on him maybe a little more than people would think, to be a big part of that defensive in every aspect of the word strategy. I was asked from some of my buddies, what changes might we see in the team's defensive strategies? And my literal answer was Albert Johansson. They're like, who? I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
I really see him being a part of that.
One thing I'll throw out too is, so I live in the Grand Rapids area, so I'm able to see quite a few Griffins games. There was a good stretch of time there where Simon Edvinsson and Albert Johansson was the top pairing in Grand Rapids, and they played off of each other really well, and they're both left-handed guys, so somebody was always playing on their offhand side, and that's going to come into play this season, I think. And the thing about that pair is that Edvinsson's at his best when he's able to just kind of take charge of things and be aggressive and make plays and step up and, activate in the offensive zone. And it was on Johansson to basically be the smart one and play the quieter game and cover for Edvinsson when he was getting aggressive and sit back and whatnot. I think playing with Edvinsson and having to play that role is going to benefit him in a huge way, because whether he's playing with Edvinsson in Detroit or whether he's just kind of being asked to be like, that bottom pairing, just don't look stupid role, I think he can do that. I think the best thing about Albert Johansson is just how smart he is on the ice. So if they put him in a position to show that, I think he'll succeed.
How confident would you guys say that we could see a stint, and not just one game or like a sporadic games, a stint of Edvinsson and Johansson playing on the same pair together this season? Tough question to answer, I know. Sorry. Tickle my fancy a little bit, guys.
I would say if we see that, then things are looking really good, because, they're obviously both going to be inexperienced, we'll say, because I don't think Edvinsson's a rookie anymore, but inexperienced. And if they're willing to put them together, that means they're both playing really well. So I think it's possible. They obviously have some chemistry from their time in Grand Rapids together, but it's going to be dependent on just how they look, really.
It's a pipe dream that I think a lot of Red Wings fans want to have right down the stretch if it happens, maybe as soon as next season or maybe a couple games this season. What do you think about that, Tony?
I think if it happens, it's going to happen towards the end of the year, because if you think about it, Edvinsson's going to be playing, high impact top 4 minutes, probably trying to lessen the load on Seider and Sherrod a little bit. And then with Johansson, they'll probably try to ease him in a little bit at the start. So you kind of have to just wait for the Venn diagram to happen. Where's that middle ground? As Edvinsson is continuing to progress and Johansson is ramping up at the NHL level, when does it make sense to play them together to kind of find that chemistry again? Is there an injury to Jeff Petrie or ineffectiveness or to Ole Mana or Eric Gustafsson where you want to be more strategic with your pairings, where you put Edvinsson and Johansson together? I think that opportunity will come into play, but not until that towards the end of the season.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, that does make the most sense, right? Just kind of see where the team's sitting at that point, if there's an injury or anything else that occurs down that line. Yeah, 100%. To finish up and wrapping up your article, Tony, and we'll kind of ask you guys questions about some other articles that you've written, but goaltending. You have Husso at the top. I'm assuming, I don't know if you're saying that he is the number one goaltender, but is he the number one goaltender?
I'm going to jump in first real quick. Stay tuned, because I know what Tony's working on right now, and I'm very excited to hear how he answers this question.
Okay. Tony, I don't know if you want to spill the beans real quick.
There's a big asterisk to this answer. I'll put it that way. But yeah, I think at the beginning of this upcoming season, if nothing else happens, then Husso will be the number one goalie going into camp, going into the preseason. The expectation, and this is probably the 99% expectation, if you will, but he'll be healthy. I don't think I mean, let's be honest. It was a lost season for him, but I don't think this is something that's going to linger through the summer and into next season. I think this is something that just gets settled over the summer, gets healthy, or builds back his strength over the summer and is like normal for the preseason and training camp. But yeah, I think it'll be more of a 1A, 1B thing with Cam Talbot. I don't think they're going to. The original plan for Husso this past season was to do another 55, 60 games for him. Obviously, it didn't happen. But I don't think they're gonna try for that same strategy again. I think if they're bringing in Cam Talbot, especially on a 2-year deal, given the season he had with Los Angeles, there's probably some expectation on his end that he's going to be playing close to half the games. So yeah, it'll be a 1A, 1B thing. They'll ride the hot hand. It'll fluctuate throughout the season. Alex Lyon's probably going to get in a few games. But yes, Husso is the 1A for now.
I have so many questions for you swirling in my head, but I'm going to wait until the article comes out because I don't want to ruin it for everyone watching and listening. But Carlo, do you have anything that you want to touch on about the goaltending?
I did have the same question, and I was a little intrigued on seeing Alex Lyon sort of in the same position he was, to start last season. But when you look at Cam Talbot, I think that's a name that, based off of his recent play, you kind of have to. I think he's commanded some respect, and you'd be silly to not think that he's not going to have, whether it be 30 to 40 games. I think you're a little naive to think that wasn't the case. So. I'm a big Alex Lyon fan just based off of what he did for Detroit last season. I'm sure we all are, but this team obviously needs to ride that hot hand. And hey, who knows? Alex Lyon could very well be that hot hand, 6 months from now, 8 months from now. It's just too soon to say anything. But in looking at it though, and listening to you guys talk about it, it's not as surprising, I think, as many might think to see Ville Husso as that 1A. I mean, that's what he was signed here to do. I think that stuff, like you said, Tony, is going to get settled, and then we're back at square one into training camp. And knock on wood, all goes well, and Ville's healed up, rested, and good to go. But I think I think it's a very competitive situation for all three of those goaltenders. So I think for us as fans, it's going to be great because now you got three goalies that want that 1A spot. They're going to be playing their butts off, and I think that's a really good position for us to kind of be in.
It's also a contract year for Husso and Lyon, so
yeah.
Well,
I'll just jump in too. I'm very fascinated to see just how this goaltending situation develops over the year, because like you said, Alex Lyon was the guy last year.
Yeah,
is it fair to just throw him aside? Going into the season. Because I agree, Talbot's going to play. You signed him to play. He's not going to be the third guy. And I think if Husso's good to go, you have to play him too. He's getting paid the most out of all their goalies.
Yeah.
And then, Lyon was their starter last year. I think you got to give him some starts too. And then we haven't even talked about Jack Campbell, who they brought in, and Sebastian Cossa, who's going to be pushing for starts too. So in theory, they have 5 guys entering training camp that think that they should be playing in the NHL. And that should, at the very least, provide some good competition and should elevate some people. And then also, too, I know a lot of people really cling to the first part of what Yzerman said about the goaltending situation. He said he didn't foresee the team going into the season with 3 goalies. That wasn't the plan last year. Doesn't want to do it this year. But the second part of the quote that people seem to forget about is that he said he would adapt if need be. I think that the preference was to get like a legit starter or at least, have some sort of set plan there. But now that you bring in Cam Talbot, who is a good goalie, but I don't know that he's, a 60 start guy. I think that they've adapted. I just kind of laid it out too. You have at least 3 guys that are deserving of NHL starts. I think to start the season, even though it's not what they wanted to do, I think they're going to roll with 3 and then kind of let things sort themselves out. You can always make a change mid-season.
Yeah.
It's you both brought it up, Devin and Tony, the 11, 8, and 3, right? They did that last year. It's more and more looking like they're going to do that this year. You go on what used to be cap friendly no longer available. Now we're moving over to Puckpedia and some other websites that are surrounding, the internet. It does seem like that a lot of teams are trending in that direction, that they want to go the 11-8-3, or at least looking at some of the rosters of some of these teams. Are teams kind of expecting the worst going into the season at this point in hockey in the NHL?
I think it shows how important depth has become. I mean, it's always been important, right? But especially in a salary cap league, and also for what it's worth, especially when you talk specifically about goaltenders, there's really only like 8 like elite guys that can start 60 games. So there's 8 teams that have those guys. Boston had 2 of them at one point in time. And everyone else is just trying to make do with what's left. I think that more and more you're finding that you can't, if a guy isn't made to start 60 games, you can't give that guy 60 games.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of compensate for it somehow. And also, how many teams have had their playoff runs derailed because a goalie went down an injury. So it's nice to have at least one other guy that can
Edmonton
start. Exactly, right? If you can just have one serviceable goalie in your system somewhere, you can ride that to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Tony? I agree with Devin. It is all about depth. I have a theory about how things are going to play out. I'll lay it out for you guys. After training camp, towards the end of training camp into the preseason, the Red Wings are going to send Costa down, obviously. And then they're going to waive Jack Campbell to be Costa's mentor, play the Michael Hutchinson role. If he gets claimed, which is entirely possible because injuries happen, he's on a league minimum contract, and frankly, does have a history of performing well in the NHL in the not too distant past. It's entirely possible he gets claimed. And so what happens next? Do you bring up Carter Gylander from the ECHL to play the backup to Kosa? No, not necessarily. At that point, you can potentially waive Lyon when there's less need for a goalie out there to play in the AHL with Kosa. And then you'll have 2 goalies there, 2 goalies in the NHL with Talbot and Husso. I think Jack Campbell, I think that signing was just an insurance policy, to be honest. It could be a really great one if he, makes it back to the NHL or mentors Kosa as a former first round, high expectations, draft pick. I think that's how things are going to play out. And if no one gets claimed, then the Griffins have 2 great goalies in the perfect setup for Kosa. And then in Detroit, you have 3 goalies who, we were saying earlier, 3 goalies who believe they should be starting. And, it's going to be great competition for getting those minutes.
Yeah.
If they are able to keep Jack Campbell, I mean, Devin, you wrote this in one of your articles too, how Kosa could benefit from having someone like Jack Campbell, right? And if they are able to keep Jack Campbell, the Grand Rapids Griffins, I mean, they've made the push for the playoffs this season. How much deeper did they extend that push this season if they are able to keep both of them?
I think that if they are able to hold Campbell in the AHL, I think there's a really good argument to be made. They have the best tandem in the AHL. At least they have I think they have the highest upside of any tandem in the AHL.
For sure.
I think that Kosa had his stretches last season where he wasn't quite hitting the mark. Obviously, he finished strong, and that's what you wanted, and whatever. But as he was trying to get acclimated to being a full-time AHLer, he had his bumps in the road for sure. And Michael Hutchinson, he was a really good tandem partner for Kosa last season, but he's not the same caliber of goaltender as Jack Campbell is. So I think the floor for the Griffins gets raised substantially by having Jack Campbell there, and just having them to push each other. I think Campbell definitely thinks he should be in the NHL still and want to be there at some point. So if they're pushing each other to be their best, it's going to be difficult to score on the Griffins this season. And that's not even mentioning the litany of defensive prospects that should be playing there as well, right?
True.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're pretty stacked on there. It's pretty much looking at the future Red Wings, right, in the next 3 years, so to say. Hopefully that's the plan, right? And Devin and Tony, you can touch on this too. Devin, you also mentioned is Michael Franzig. Is it Nygaard? I get it wrong every single time.
Nygaard.
But you made the not a comparison. I hate using that word, but Marian Hossa. Can you kind of go into a little depth about that? I mean, and then Tony, I believe it was you. 50 goal scorers. When was the last time the Red Wings had a 50 goal scorer? Could that possibly be MBN? Because both him and Steve say that's his best trade is a shot.
Yeah. The reason why I think of Hossa is, well, first and foremost, whenever I start to specifically talk about Wings prospects, I really try to find a former Red Wing to compare them to. Because then, the casual fan can at least think like, oh, I know what that player was like.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's like 1-for-1 with Hossa, but there are some similarities there. Hossa was not a string bean. He had some weight on his frame, and Nygaard, especially if he continues to physically develop, he's going to be like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
And Hossa was one of the better two-way wingers in the league when he played. Nygaard, again, was drafted because of his two-way ability and his compete level. Same idea there. And then Hossa also was actually a pretty darn good goal scorer too, wasn't he?
Yes, he
pretty
was.
good offensive weapon. And like you just said, Nygaard, that was like the first thing that Yzerplan mentioned was Nygaard can really rip the puck. And so, you combine this package of being physically kind of imposing, being able to play on both sides of the rink, being able to shoot the puck really well. Again, I think that's a package that's similar to Marian Hossa. And if he reaches his ceiling, that's what he could look like. And hopefully he stays in Detroit longer than one season like Hossa did.
I hope so. Please stay longer. But Tony, could he be a 50 goal scorer? If not, are the Red Wings ever going to see a 50 goal scorer again, in your opinion?
I don't think Franzig Nygaard will be a 50 goal scorer. I do think the Red Wings will have one at some point. I just don't think he's the guy. I think he's probably closer to a 25-30 goal guy. It's funny, the player that came to mind for me throughout this draft process is the guy that the Red Wings signed instead of Hossa, Johan Franzen. Except, right-handed shot. But rip the puck two-way forward. Kind of the same thing as Devin was outlining, just not as high of an offensive ceiling as Hossa, but then could have those spurts where it's like, whoa, what just happened here? 4 goals in that game, or 5 even.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's a 50 goal guy. I think those are kind of rare to find these days.
Yeah.
But I don't think 30 should be a problem in his prime, though.
That would be fantastic. We'll take those any day of the week. But yeah, you said that eventually we should see a 50 goal scorer, right? Obviously, we don't know who it could be unless you think there is someone currently in the Red Wing system that could be that.
I don't think that person's in the system just yet.
Well,
or on the team. Could be an acquisition, could be a draft pick, but I don't think they're here yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there, Tony.
But you also have to think, Yzerplan is clearly building this team in a certain way. Maybe they don't have a 50 goal scorer like on their next great team. Maybe they have, 4 40 goal scorers or 6 30 goal scorers. You have to ask yourself, like, which is better?
Yeah.
A deeper team or a top heavy team? You can win both ways, but having a 50 goal scorer doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful. And I think we can there's one team that comes to mind specifically.
I'm already thinking about that.
Yep.
I'm not going to fight, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So glad you went down that road, Tony. I appreciate that. That's good. Walk us down there. So here's kind of my question for you guys. Speaking of Yzerplan and how he's building this team, How does Yzerman's adherence to his plan contribute to building a consistently competitive team? Like, it really seems like he is going for that 440 goal scorers type of build. And I think that's probably the build he's most familiar with, especially as a player during his time with Detroit too. So I can understand why that's maybe a little bit more comfortable for him. But what are the next steps for the Red Wings in terms of short-term success and long-term sustainability, in your guys' opinion?
I mean, I think you just keep going with the plan, right? I think there's always a critique on how Yzerman is building the team, but how things have played out, what else are you supposed to do? Being bad for longer that's not a sustainable strategy. Yeah. And what kind of gets lost in the sauce here is that the Red Wings it's a business, and they need to make money. They need to put a quality product on the ice. You can't just be bad for an extended amount of time until you luck into a first or second overall pick,
right? And
then just get good all of a sudden. That's just not how it works. And there's more than one way to build a team.
Yep.
Frankly, if you look at the Seider's draft and Raymond's draft, those two players are top three talents from those draft classes. So even if they didn't get a lottery pick, they're still getting lottery talent.
Bingo.
But I mean, I think you just got to keep going with what you're doing now is drafting, high quality, high character prospects, having them progress through the system, finding development efficiencies along the way. And when they get to Detroit or are close to it, just creating that meaningful competition for them to earn that spot. We're seeing that with Albert Johansson this coming season. He needs to earn that spot over Eric Gustafsson, Ole Mata, and Justin Hall as well. Yeah. So same with Berggren. He's not going to play top 6 minutes unless he earns that, and he needs to do so by knocking out like a Tarasenko or what have you. And then obviously, with the Red Wings, they're going to continue to surround these young players with high quality leaders. There's no surprise that you have Kane there, you have Kopp, you have Sherratt, you have Tarasenko, you have Larkin. All of these players are well respected around the league, and there's a reason why they're in Detroit. It's not always to score or play better defensively. It's to guide these players, these young players, about how to be professionals and how to be good professionals as well. So it's in motion. It's going to take a little bit more time, but they're getting there.
Yeah. Very well said, Tony. I appreciate that run through. That was very, very well said. And it's kind of paints a really clear picture for me. And I'm hoping for folks out that are, watching, paying attention, folks online. Cause there's a lot of people that Yzerplan and Yzerplan and this and that. And it's annoying, frankly, because when you really break it down that way, very stoic, like it's coming, and there's a process to it. Hopefully people start to understand that. So thank you for going in depth on that, Tony. That was great.
Yeah, same thing for you, Devin. I'd love to hear from you as well. But also, just kind of add to that. What exactly is the Yzerplan? Because it does seem like fans have lost track of that, because I asked that even in our group chat, and not to throw any of our hosts under the bus, but Matt did say, well, I hope that Steve Yzerman would make us a Stanley Cup championship team. Yeah, but are you willing to wait to get that? Because it won't happen in 5 years, and here we are. So what is it? And give us your thoughts overall.
I think that Yzerman's actually been pretty clear about what the Yzerplan is. It's just unfortunate that it can't happen in 2 years, like a team based in New York that wears red and blue. Or even like Chicago, a lot of these teams that, fall into first round draft talents and generational talents, and live in places where players just will sign because of the landscape of that place or whatever. They have shortcuts. Detroit did not get any shortcuts. They did not get a first overall pick. They do not have, they don't have, they have income tax here in Michigan. All the little shortcuts that a lot of teams have, the Red Wings just either don't or they didn't luck into them.
Yeah.
And that means that you have to take the long way. If you don't have a shortcut, there's only one other way to do it. It is unfortunate that, we're still in a playoff drought, and there's still fuel there for people to question if there's even a plan. But it is what it is. Like I said, I think Yzerplan's been pretty clear. The plan is to draft talent and slowly build up a nucleus that can contend for years to come. And over time, you surround it with, as Tony said, good veterans, good, well-respected veterans that know how to play in the NHL and can be good mentors and be good, good role models for these kids. Again, it takes time. I think that the reason why I'm still in the camp of they're on track is that they've continued to get better year after year after year after year.
Yes.
Even in that weird COVID season, they still improved over that nightmare 2019-20 season. And then last year they missed the playoffs by a point. Like it's not like they lost a tire late in the season like they did in years past. They were right there until the last season. And if Philadelphia doesn't pull their goaltender, there's a very real chance.
Thanks, Torts. Appreciate
they
you.
make the playoffs. And then what are we talking about? Then we're talking about how they become a perennial cup contender instead of when are they ever going to make the playoffs? It's the way people talk. It's like they're years away. And honestly, they could sneak in this year.
Yes,
it's a very similar team than what they had last year, and you could make the argument it's a better team. So, like I said, I think it's pretty simple. They're drafting talent through the draft and adding to it as they go along and as players kind of prove themselves. I think next offseason is going to be a huge one because they don't have a Seider and a Raymond to sign. They don't have a lot of big contracts they got to deal with, but they will have money to spend because the cap's going to go up, and next year's free agent pool looks a lot better than this one did. So if they can take a step this year, even if they squeak into the playoffs, I think Yzerplan's going to be ready to spend some money because they're knocking on the door, and it's just a matter of when they're ready to step through the door.
Yeah, I think, depending on obviously what the Raymond, Seider, Berggren contracts look like, they should have right around $30 million to spend next year, around there. And you got some big names: Rantanen, Marner, Draisaitl.
Big names. It is a really good, really good looking pool. Devin, quick question for you. You brought up how arguably this team could be better. And my question on that to you is, do you think they got better based off their additions or their subtractions? Subtractions, rather.
Tony, too. You can answer this.
Oh, yeah, that's totally.
A little bit of both, honestly. I do think that they should be better defensively this year, and I do think that was a point of focus for them. I think, you don't have Daniel Sprong there. You don't have Shane Gostisbehere there, and these are, offensively gifted players that left something to be desired in the defensive zone. So improving on that, and that alone, you're not going to score as many goals, but you also shouldn't give up as many. And then you're also kind of hoping for growth from the Edvindsons, the Johanssons, and even the Seiders of the world to also just make that meet a little bit more in terms of goals for and goals against. Again, I don't think they're going to be as offensively potent or even exciting as they were this past season, but I think that how they even that out is by taking care of business in their own zone a lot better than they did. So maybe not as much of a exciting team, but they also shouldn't be giving you as many heart attacks because they can't defend.
Lots of heart attacks.
Generally, I agree with everything Devin said, but if you kind of look at it based on position groups, starting with the forwards, the top six is going to be better, arguably, if you're swapping in Tarasenko for David Perron, and then you have another year of chemistry with Kane, Comfort, DeBrincat, who were in their first year at the organization last year. That's a net gain right there. Checking line, neutral, stay the same, going to be fine. You could argue that the fourth line of Berggren, Veleno, and Tyler Mott's more well-rounded than any combination we saw last year as well. So at the very least, that's neutral. It's not worse, for sure. On defense, that's where I think there's the most, disagreement among the fan base and among analysts. But it's not so much that the Red Wings are losing Gostisbehere and brought in Eric Gustafsson, and they're just Gustafsson doesn't have Gostisbehere's ceiling in terms of offensive skill set. But if you look at their play as a whole between offense and defense, Gostisbehere is a net neutral. I mean, there were plenty of defensive gaps. Yes, he scored a lot for sure, but there are defensive gaps. So those two kind of balance out. Gustafsson, it's that, but scaled down a little bit. So it's kind of a 1-for-1 switch out. You may not score as much, but you're not going to give up as much. So you may not need to score as much. Mm-hmm. And then I know Jake Wallman was, near and dear to, all Red Wings fans. But I mean, his play was up and down last year at best. So, it's interesting because like some people look at it as he's gone and like they didn't bring anyone in to replace him. That's not true. You're getting a full year of Stevenson, which I think by the end of the year we'll see as that being a gain over Jake Wallman. And then finally, goaltending is, I think everyone can agree that Husso, Talbot, and Lyon is better than Husso, Reimer, and Lyon. So, and especially if Husso's healthy and, plays more, 15 games. Factoring in all that, they're a better team. I think the only question is, are they good enough to get past Washington, who got better this offseason? New Jersey got better this offseason. Mm-hmm. Islanders got up moderately better. So, like, how they can stack up against the rest of the Eastern Conference, that remains to be seen. But the team as a whole is better.
And I want to throw out just one more point. I talked about how if they're able to take that step, then Yzerman's going to be ready to throw some money at the team. I think that how he's positioned the team is that growth has to come from the youngest players. Yeah. And we, like you said, Tony, another year of Kane and DeBrincat and Compher. What wasn't said was Lucas Raymond. If Lucas Raymond continues to be the player he was down the stretch, he's scoring more than 72 points next season, boys. That's, how much offense are you gaining because Lucas Raymond's taking another step? Can Seider take another step offensively too? That's a whole other thing. And Simon Edmondson, like you said there, Tony, he's going to replace some of Gostisbehere offense too, I think. And that's kind of the point. You asked me what's the Yzerplan. It's not about bringing in a bunch of free agencies to artificially create a playoff team. Mm-hmm. It's about supporting the young guys and getting them to a point where they are the ones pushing the team to where they want to be. Because again, to, I guess, reiterate, if the Red Wings make the playoffs this year, I don't think it's because they brought in Vladimir Tarasenko or they signed Tom Talbot. Right. It's because Lucas Raymond became an all-star talent. And Moritz Seider proved that Calder Trophy wasn't a fluke. And Simon Edmondson is a bona fide NHLer and this and that and this and that. And that's what you want. That's the point of rebuilding. So I think that there's definitely ways for them to make up what they've lost and even be better than what they were. And it's going to be because of the kids.
I firmly believe Lucas Raymond has another step in that clutch gene that he activated this past season. I really do firmly believe that. Mm-hmm. Regardless if it's in the points category, I think that we'll see a huge uptick in his overall play and production this upcoming season for sure. All right, rapid fire questions real quick, and then we can wrap it up. But what number will Tarasenko wear?
Oh, geez. 17.
Okay.
92.
Let's see. Chances we see Kiskinen play NHL games this season?
Not this season. I am intrigued by him, though.
Yeah, agreed. Same. 0% this year.
Devin, you mentioned something about Soda being an extra forward this year. Possibilities of that.
Yeah.
You already kind of said yes, Devin, but.
Yeah. I guess I'll preface this by saying I'm not the coach, believe it or not. I think I would, if I'm being honest, I'm going to put it at 25%. The reason why I think you pull him up is because of just his unique traits, and you can kind of make a decision on him after the season depending on how it goes. I think he's someone that you don't need to keep around a super long time if he's not going to be anything.
Yeah, if the Red Wings move to 2 goalies, then sure, why not?
Cool. Joe Veleno deal, 2-year, $2.275 million. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay. Good value.
A little bit longer than I would have liked, a little bit more, but I think this is probably right around what you're paying for Forsyth now at this point, right? And you're familiar with him, so great signing.
Thank you guys so much. You've kind of calmed my nerves a little bit as a fan. So I just want to thank you guys for that. Just the way you kind of put things into check, into perspective. I really think this was a great episode to get this out to the fans. And fans, make sure you're checking out Tony and Devin's articles because they too will calm you down a little bit and really kind of show you that there are some good things not so far away. So with that said, guys, thank you very, very much. We really, really appreciate you guys coming on. I had a great time, and we hope you guys did too.
Yeah, honestly, just to piggyback off of what Carlos said, I don't think I could really say anything much else on top of that. Really do appreciate your guys' time today. Once again, thanks for joining us. Tony, Devin, lay down the groundwork. Let the fans, the viewers, the listeners know where to find you guys, what you guys do, and all that jazz.
Sure. Again, thank you guys for having us on. It was a blast to chat with you all today. Head over to the Hockey Writers to catch the latest from Devin and I. At Tony Wolak on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it these days. Turn it over to Devin.
Yeah, like Tony said, thanks for having us, guys. It was a lot of fun. Love talking Red Wings. Follow me on X, Twitter X, whatever Elon's site's called. At Hockey with Devin. I'm on all sorts of things. You can find me at Hockey with Devin. And be sure to check out our articles. We're like Xanax over at Hockey Writers. We definitely calm people down.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Good content.
We will be linking the articles that we mentioned and then a few more in the description of this video. That will be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, obviously, which is our main source if you're not viewing us on there. But yeah, once again, claps. Carlo,
big claps. Thanks,
for the
guys.
boys.
It was a great time.
Definitely appreciate the time. Hopefully we can do this again in the near future.
Yes.
But shout out to you guys, and we'll see you guys here in a little bit. And we're back.
Boom.
Carlo.
Claps for the boys. Big
Tony.
claps for the boys.
Devin.
That was great. Was great.
We already said it to him so many times, but honestly, thank you, boys, for hopping on this episode with us. Carlo said it earlier. Definitely made me feel more at ease just hearing what they had to say. And we say this all the time. It's always good to have other perspectives from other Wings fans. It gives you more, right? And sees what they see and helps you kind of grow your mind as to what Steve Yzerman wants to do, what direction the Red Wings are going into, and what the outlook is going to be for this Detroit Red Wings organization, not only right now, but 5 years, 10 years in the future. Carlo, what do you think overall about everything? There was a lot, but a lot of good stuff in there from Tony and Devin.
Yeah, I feel like they just unlocked a tremendous amount of foresight. And maybe I shouldn't say unlocked, but certainly extended my foresight to looking at it maybe 10 years down the road, which is very challenging to do for anything. But their words, their insights, and the way they, really kind of broke down how there's certain key players. Like, it's easy for us to call, players that are a little bit older, plug players, but they're very tasteful plug players. And I think that's the point that they helped me come to after speaking with Tony and Devin. Very tasteful plug players that will leave behind their fingerprints on our young guys who are going to be there 10 years down the road from now, hopefully, should everything go as we hope. But yeah, they just really gave me that extended foresight, very refreshed. And I really do feel that there is something big brewing here, but the key word's brewing. There's still things that need to happen, ferment, whatever you want to call it. I think ferment's actually a really good word for it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's I'm excited again. Not that the excitement ever left, but I do feel a little bit more excited than I have been since trade deadline about this team, especially after understanding their point of view and kind of their behind the scenes on what their thoughts are. So I thought it was awesome. Again, I can't thank them enough for their time. And to the way I feel after, speaking with them, I want to thank them for that too, because I just feel great. I feel totally rejuvenated. So thank you, boys. If you are watching post interview, that was awesome. And we appreciate your time and can't thank you enough. So, yeah. I think we're on the up and up. I think we're definitely above water as a state of the team. We're getting better. Now we just need to see the likes of Simon Edvinsson for a full season. We need to see the likes of Albert Johansson for whether it be 40, 50 games. What is that going to do to the team? And more importantly, the defensive structure, right? Because if we can let in less goals, frankly, that's what we need to do. And if those two guys are a part of why we're doing that, that's going to make re-signing Patrick Kane and getting Vladimir Tarasenko look even better, right? So just a way to look at it, but
yeah, overall, just to kind of summarize what Tony and Devin said towards the end, to the state of the Red Wings right now, I think they're in a very good position. Your prospects are thriving down in Grand Rapids Griffins. Granted, Steve, and I get it, a lot of fans, they see other teams bringing up their young, talented players sooner than the Red Wings are. Just because the Red Wings aren't following the same structure as they are does not mean that these prospects are bust by any means or that they're not good at what they do. So I think, yeah, going back to what Tony and Devin said, it reassured us, or it should have helped a little bit that the plan here is to develop the young guys, let them do what they need to do while still staying competitive in the NHL, which you are doing by getting players like Patrick Kane, Steven Stamkos, Vladimir Tarasenko, and then still having players like Lucas Raymond who could still improve, and then Moritz Seider, Dylan Larkin, let's see if he can elevate his game, and then Alex DeBrincat as well. So this team is in a very good position right now, Carlo, whether people want to believe it or not. And time will tell. The season's coming up. It's the dark off season right now. Honestly, we're right in the murky middle, but it's coming faster than a lot of people, I think, believe. So, Carlo, final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I think the final thoughts are things are okay. Things are going to be okay. And I think there's a lot of good reason to watch this season. There are some new faces that obviously we could look forward to watching. But I think we can also look forward to watching some familiar faces take some more steps and let less goals in and maybe score a couple more goals. But nonetheless, that's my final thought. I think all is good. It is the murky middle of the off season. It's summertime. Things are good. Weather's good. I think the state of the team is good. So everything's good. That's the final thought. Everything's good. Take it easy.
Those are some really good final thoughts. Yeah, take it easy. Yeah, my final thoughts are: let's go Red Wings. Let's go Grand Rapids Griffins. Let's go Toledo Walleye. Let's go Tony. Let's go Devin. Thanks for joining us once again. If you guys are watching the tail end of this episode, very shocked if you are, but claps to you guys.
Claps to you guys. You deserve.
Let me know if you did too. Feel free to shoot us a DM. But yeah, those are my final thoughts. And until next time, we'll see y'all on the next one. See ya.
See you guys.